Okay, hello and thank you for tuning to Stampscaping 101. I just did another one of these light on dark compositions. I'm just having a really good time with it. Plus, I want to kind of get a better feel for what I'm doing when I'm doing this, and there's a lot of things that I wanted to try out. I wanted to try out a quote stamp on here. I thought this type of composition right here was really just kind of a prime type of composition for a quote stamp. This one right here comes off the Scenic Sentiment sheet that has a lot of star kind of sayings on there. Starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. And what I did on here, unlike the last scene, was I just kind of featured one star in there just to kind of go along with the theme of that quote right here. If I put that kind of haze over everything, then it really wouldn't be about the first star, you know, so I just made it that one. I guess I have a lot of other texture in here, and there's other stars that I could see, but I don't know, I guess that would look just as good without all these other stars in here, if I just had that one out there. Maybe. But anyways, this is using the Leafless Pine Lg stamp right here. This is a 5x7 card, by the way. And the pine tree in the background. I wanted to kind of play around with different textures in here. Okay, that was my experiment with this one. And I don't know, just a couple different sizes of this one to recede visually in the background there. But what I say in this video that surprisingly for me doing this technique is I feel like you can achieve quite a bit of depth by just stamping something in one color and embellishing it with, you know, one value, which is white. Now I played around with a little bit of different application of the Dr. Martin's bleed proof white. You know, in the trees I'd use kind of a little bit more of a scumbling, you know, kind of a dabbing technique, dry brush almost. But on the branches, I went along more in the spirit of that shape and just kind of painted some of this on. And it's all painted on in a very irregular fashion. You can see it right here, clumped up right here, and then it kind of trails off. But you can see that? Where it's clumped, it's not applied really in any safe manner. You know, it's almost like blobs in some areas, but it all works out. If you put enough of a certain texture over all of the similar objects and shapes within a scene, then it kind of ties together thematically. But I think that's the thing that's giving this a lot of depth. So anyways, we basically have black and gray, which is the images stamped out in white, okay, but black is showing through them, so that's a version of gray and white. So we have basically three values in here. And just with three values, it's really surprising what you can achieve. It almost looks, to me, it almost looks three-dimensional. It's almost more three-dimensional than I know some of the scenes that I do in color. There's less depth that, you know, we don't have like something going back into, you know, photographically what would be infinity. But just in that kind of that short space there, shallow space, there's a surprisingly amount of depth you can make. In sculpture, when they do these things called like a coin or something like that, a dime or something, pennies, okay, they call those bas reliefs. They're reliefs that are just kind of brought up a little bit, but this kind of reminds me of a bas relief a little bit. You know, there's plenty of depth in it, but it is really a kind of shallow space in reality. So I don't know, just a lot of fun, and it really opens a lot of doors as far as further or future scenes that we can kind of experiment with. Hope you enjoy the scene and the process by which it was made. Okay, after that last lesson, I needed to do one or two more of these scenes with kind of a reversed out image on dark cardstock. As in the last lesson, previous one, I'm using a dark black cardstock, and it's pre-folded or creased to make into a card. Alright, so it doesn't have to be, you know, folded or anything like that, but I figured I'd make this into a card, so I'm going to try something different on this one. I'm going to try the Leafless Pines. I'm looking for imagery, which really could be any one of them, that has a lot of opportunity to place a lot of that snow on the branches. So this one, of course, has a lot of open space and a lot of horizontal branches for that kind of opportunity. Let me see here. I'm going to put something over here on the side. I'm going to put a couple of these little small images because when I stamp this out, even though I think I could do it nice and flat, this has the tack and peel on it, so it's sticky, and I don't want to accidentally rock it and have it stick to the paper. It wouldn't hurt it, but you know, sometimes this is pretty tacky, and when you peel it off, I don't want to kind of bend the paper at all. Okay, Colorbox Frost White Pigment ink. Sometimes when the stamp is larger than the pad, I take pad to stamp instead of the other way around. Now this won't cover the entire card, so I probably don't need to ink up this bottom portion, but I will anyway because I'm not really quite sure how much of it I'm going to use. Now I figure I'm probably going to use this stamp, or maybe in the smaller version, a few times on this card. I'll intersperse it with some more of a leafier evergreen as well. Okay. Kind of this look for me came about by accident. I was doing that the symmetry image of a butterfly from the Symmetry Sheet series, and the image didn't stamp out, kind of real stark white, but in applying a very opaque white over the top of it in the form of that paint, it kind of really gave it a nice look, I thought. So thus kind of a new look, for me at least, was born. And sometimes, you know, the most interesting techniques come about really by accident. So we don't always have to kind of go with our kind of predicted looks or marks that we think we're making. All right, so this is the pine tree. Okay, I could go with all of those leafless pines, but I thought I'd just kind of mix it up because this is, again, it's just I don't know, the third scene that I've done here. So I want to take a look and see what different images look like with this type of technique or process. I don't think I'm inventing this or anything like that. I just haven't done it myself, so we'll see. Okay, this is the pine. This is on cling foam right here from our set. Okay, and let's go about right here. All right, it's pretty cool looking. Yeah. I really need to go out and do some shopping. I'm thinking about silver, maybe, silver pigment ink, gold pigment ink. I'd be kind of curious to see what those would look like, kind of in this style. Okay. I have a feeling that if I make an impression and I don't hold that down as long, it will probably come out a little bit more translucent and maybe a kind of a darker looking pine tree, but I'm not really quite sure. Let's try it here. Let's just go down and lift. Yeah, it's a little bit darker. Okay. So I guess you can get a little bit of variation just depending on how long you keep it down, if you do want some variation. And of course this is pigment ink, so I guess you can emboss these too if you wanted to. Okay. I need something on the front of this one, don't I? Let's put a shorter one down here. I inked up quite a bit of that pine tree, but I'm only using the top, maybe, I don't know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches or so. Okay, that looks a little better, compositionally speaking. And trying to think of what else. Let's go over here. This is looking a little bit airy to me. Let me go and put another small one down here, kind of a tree tip. Maybe it's a younger tree, not quite as tall. And I think I could use a smaller version of this one, now that I'm looking at it. Okay, I found that one quickly. Tack and peel block. I could go with the large one again down here, but what I'm looking at is there's this kind of a there's too much of this balance in here for me. You know, it's like dramatic balance, but I don't think it looks so great that way, so I need something to kind of offset it a touch. Right? So this is kind of going for this repetition of form, but just using a smaller version of it. Okay, that looks a little bit better, I think. Something like that. That's kind of a nice varied row of trees. Now, when I'm doing scenes that kind of go edge to edge, and go right off the page, I have things kind of coming in from the sides, but in this case, I feel that it's kind of better to contain the composition somewhat to the, the width of the card. So I have things just kind of formally situated right in there, like so. Okay. All right, now the thing that I'm really having a lot of fun doing is adding some variation to the branches. Normally I'm going with color, 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 but in this one I'm just going with kind of variations of kind of a grayscale, meaning that these trees, I was saying it wrong. I was saying that these are like a 90%. They're more like a 10% gray or something like that, right? They're almost white, but that the black of the paper is showing through. That tip there really got really light because there's more paint in that area. But let's see here. Now that's the thing. That's the kind of the aspect of this process that makes this technique possible. All right. When I did my last, when I did that butterfly impression, and it didn't stamp out dark enough. Light enough. I have to think in reverse here. I didn't like it too much, but then I added this Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White on there, and I was able to lighten up some certain areas, and I thought, oh, that actually looks probably better than if I had just stamped that out perfectly opaque and white. Now, if you want a perfectly white, opaque impression, then what you do is, instead of using the Colorbox Frost White, you use something like the Brilliance White. Okay, that's another faster drying ink, and that one should give you a more opaque, really light white. Okay, now, if you didn't see that last scene that I did, what I'm looking for here is just some opportunities to apply what I hope will look like snow on the tree. So these branches here of the leafless pine, I'm applying those highlights, or the lighter area, right on top of the branch, okay? And just kind of vary it a little bit. It doesn't have to be like an outline. I'm just kind of globbing it up in certain areas, and like right where the branch kind of goes into the trunk. Maybe that's the thickest part, so maybe that's where a lot of ink is kind of piled up. Kind of like right in the at the Y, where a branch Y's out, like this. I can put some snow right in here, like for example, like right in that little spot right there. There's a branch right here too, and kind of closer to us. Don't forget those ones. This is a number 2 paintbrush. Imagine a 3 would work just fine. You can do this with probably with a gel pen too. Gel pens are more consistent in terms of the fine point, so if you want a little bit more variation, the paintbrush and this paint will give that to you. And as I said in the other video, when you start applying kind of textures like this, it looks really strange and out of place if you just kind of put it in one area. or one spot. So you have to kind of give it a, I don't know, a little bit more coverage. You know, this little whatever embellishment you're doing to a scene. And it'll look more consistent with other areas of the object or of the area, and it makes more sense that way. Okay, so that's one tree. Let's do a little comparison, compare contrast. We see this tree right here with those highlights on it. Okay, and then here's the other one without it. See, they look kind of different, right? This one's a little bit more flat. This one's a little bit more dimensional, I guess. Because what we're saying is that we're saying that light is hitting it in different areas, and it's not just flat. Okay. Okay, let's try the other tree. This is really, really fun, putting these little accents like this on here. It's really fun watching something kind of come to life. And I like the look of it without this, but just this addition here, I don't know, it takes it from one kind of position visually, okay, and it just bumps it up quite a bit, I find. Because what we're doing is we're increasing the several things by doing something like this. You're increasing the value range of the scene. There's really very little kind of value range in here when you're talking about all this kind of gray in here from the imagery. I know I stamped it out in white, but again, the black paper shows through a little bit. But by adding this, we've now kind of gone to pure white in these trees in select areas. So from that pure white to, black to gray to white, we're kind of covering the full range of values, right? If you're going from black to white. Now, I don't have a lot of grayscale in here, so there's not a lot of the in between. There's like one, tone of gray in here. There's a little bit of variation in those impressions that I made, but not a huge amount. But at least you have your kind of, what it's looking at is you have your kind of your dark, mid, and light tones in this one composition right here. So it really covers a whole lot. See what I'm doing here? I'm just kind of adding some snow, like it's, stuck to, some of the side of the tree. Maybe there was a snow flurry and it kind of landed on or kind of stuck to some of these branches, or the bark maybe. So there's not any kind of real specific place that, you know, I'm doing it. I am adding it to, you know, for the most part, the tops of the branches, but I'm not necessarily just sticking with that. Okay. See that one on the background too? The back, in that little smaller tree. Okay, now let's see. I've saved my pine trees here. Now I'm going to put some of my pines as well. Kind of did some of this on the ones where I stamped on this other lesson where I stamped on startering types of paper, those iridescent papers, and I just did a quick kind of a grayscale stamped, I don't know, image, and then I've applied I put these wisps in the sky. But what I also did in there was I really added, you know, a lot of this paint into the trees just to give it a little bit of dimension. I like kind of a little bit of dimension when things start looking too flat as far as, you know, a certain technique goes, right? And I like that variation in terms of value and contrast. So even kind of it's a very simple type of example of it, I still like to do it, which is the case here with this little bit of snow, or whatever. It might be ice, it could be ice on these branches. I think it looks more like snow, though. I guess the way I clumped it. I mean, a little bit more kind of a sparing. I'm applying this sparingly to these pine trees. Just putting in a fill. It's like this thing called when you're kind of doing this dry brush little scrubby. I'm not scrubbing this back and forth. I'm just kind of dabbing it down in certain areas. You can kind of call that scumbling in painting. And that's what I'm doing here. I don't know. I can add a little bit more, but I want to go for you know, a little bit of variation in texture. So I want the trees with that have the leaves on them, the evergreens, to have a little bit more. I guess these are evergreens too, but they're just leafless, which you see a lot of around in Southern California with the droughts we've been having, but or fires that have ripped through over the past 15 years. But anyways, I want to give these, I want to treat these a little bit different. You know, the pines, the green pines to the, when I say green, they have leaves on them, or pine needles, to the dead ones. Just for a little bit of textural difference. Otherwise, it might look a little bit too monotonous. So on those other ones, I'm kind of, you know, drawing, you know, that paint onto it. But these ones, I'm kind of just kind of dabbing around. But when all's said and done, this is kind of a, it's a nice, there's nice textures in here, and depth, I guess. And there's more than I thought there would be, or I would think there would be, when we're just talking about, you know, kind of, it's almost like two shades, you know, white and over gray. Okay. See that? See, this looks somewhat dimensional. When I have it down here, we're kind of getting a bit of a glare, but you can see what it looks like that. Okay, this is the crease up here. But what I thought I would do on the scene is stamp out a quote stamp. I thought it would look, something would be appropriate up here. This one just says starlight, star bright, first star I see tonight. From the Scenic Sentiment. Scenic Sentiment stamps. Let's see, where do I want to put that? Do I want to center it? I don't think I want to center it. Okay, now on this one, I'll have to stamp it in white. I love reverse out text. I've been using that a lot in my life. I think starting back in high school, probably in my graphic arts classes. I really liked a lot of like real high contrast, almost just stark black and white to artwork. These days I like a little bit more grayscale, but I still like a full range of values in my scenes, starting from, you know, all really dark to white. Okay, so there's the quote right there. But now, where's the star, right? We need to add that in there. Or a couple of them. Yeah, I know it says first star I see tonight, but we'll make a large star. Okay, I think the large one will go right here, maybe. Now let me take a look at, maybe down here. I think that would be kind of interesting. Okay, this one will be my main star. This is just a Uniball Signo white gel pen. Okay. I know this says first star I see tonight, and there's a few of them out, but that one will be my main one. So I'm trying to make these ones kind of smaller. They will be visually kind of subservient, you might say, to the main one. Okay. If you're someone that watches a lot of these videos, you'll have to forgive me, but I have a couple other ones like this in mind. I want to do that Christmas light one, where I can put these dots down. I can put like a string of lights between some trees or something like that, and then I'm going to put that kind of glow around it, like a string of Christmas lights. Okay, so we have all that texture running in there. Doesn't that look fun? We're going to take our... Now, normally I do this over several stars, but I'm just going to do it over the one because of that quote. It, you know, it's talking about one star. You know, the first star you saw. So I'm going to make that one the brightest. And to bring a little bit more attention to it, I'm going to take some pigment ink on a cotton swab. I'm going to make sure that there's not a whole lot of it. That's why I kind of blotted it off here first. And it kind of smashed the tip a little bit. And I'm going to take it in here and zoom in a bit. And I'm going to take it over that and see if we can't make it glow. I'll kind of extend that glow out a little bit more than I normally do, just because, you know, we're talking about one. It's kind of like the star of the sky, you know, star in terms of importance, no pun intended, the focal point in the sky. All right, so here's Starlight, Star Bright, first star I see tonight, and there it is right there. Let me go a little bit more. Let me try to trail that. That off a little bit. There we go. Okay, so here's a nice card. It's pre-folded. So that makes for a pretty quick card. That took me half an hour. I can do it faster, but this whole process of doing this, I'm kind of just kind of figuring things out on the fly, so I'm getting more used to it, I should say. I know what to expect a little bit more with each one of these that I do, but I don't know, there's a lot of variation down here. I think within these trees, I think we've created a decent amount of depth. I'm holding this at an angle, right? You know, we're going to get that kind of glare going here, but I don't know. I mean, for stamping something out in one color and white, you know, on top of that aspect, but just adding in those little white accents in here, I don't know, visually for me, there's enough variation that I feel that it looks, you know, there's some space and distance within this grouping of trees or objects. You can do that with any kind of object too. And in this case, you know, I think that quote stamp is kind of a little bit more gray and is slightly more subdued. I think that works really well in here, and it brings kind of the attention to this. And then there's my one little star there. So I don't know, that makes for a fun kind of holiday card. I don't know that I'd want to stamp it out, you know, 50 times, but I don't know. It's just a lot of fun. And what do we have here? We have there's four different stamps, I guess. But you know, if I wanted to, I could have stamped out this one more time. But I like that smaller version. I think it recedes visually a little bit more when you have a smaller version of or a smaller version of things in there. But I didn't bother with the pine tree. I just put it at different heights to represent kind of different ages of those trees. So I don't know. Fun stuff. Hope you enjoyed it, and thank you for watching.